Well, hi everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Life Mastery TV. I'm Tommy Stoffel, coming to you from sometime in space, somewhere in the world. And today we're going to talk about something near and dear to my heart and to my partner's heart, David's heart, I'm sure as well. We're going to talk about messengers. So just what the heck's a messenger and what do we do and are you one? That's what we're going to get into today. Before that, I'd like to introduce my director, producer, cohort, and good friend, David McLeod. Hey, David.
Hi, Tommy. Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, or good evening, or whatever hell time it is for you. I agree with Tommy. We're here someplace in the universe. And I think that's an important thing to remember because wherever you go, there you are. And if you're present, that is. That if you're present. And that's really what we're talking about, isn't it? We're talking about being fully present. We're talking about being here now so that we can deliver our message and just be the message that we want to be. And to help us do that today, we've invited back our guest and good buddy, Chris Kyle, from the, oh my God, it just spaced, the launchacademycourse.com. And he's going to be talking a lot about how we bring our message into the world in a bigger way, in a conscious way. So good morning, Chris, and great to have you back on the show.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, David, Tommy, it's so great to be back with you too, and excited to dive into this topic. It's near and dear to my heart, of course, so happy to be here with you.
Yeah. Well, so, Chris, I'm just curious, what have you been up to in the last little while that's led you to create this program that you're calling the Launch Academy course, and what's it really all about?
Yeah, thanks, David. You know, like both of you said in your introductions, I've been really feeling inspired and passionate about helping, you know, rising teachers, authors, speakers, experts in their field, and helping them to expand their message globally, like actually take them, what they have to offer, and bring it out to the world. And I've been doing that over the last 4 years plus, individually with teachers and others, and it's inspired me. You know, I know you and I have talked about this. I'm doing it in spades. I'm a player coach, right?
Mm-hmm.
So player coach. So I teach a lot around purpose, life purpose, and conscious masculinity, and have my own online courses. So I've got my message to bring, but I've really been inspired to help other messengers really step through maybe some of their own fear, resistance, whatever, to bring their message more fully to the world. And it's been really rich and rewarding. And Launch Academy is now just kind of an expression of doing that in a bigger way now.
Yeah, that sounds really awesome. So just for clarification, can you help us understand what you mean by the word messenger? And I mean, who's a messenger, who's not? I mean, I know I have my own perspective on this, but I'd like to hear yours.
Yeah, well, great, and I think it may align you and I on this, and I use the word global messenger too, so you can say messenger, global messenger, and we'll talk a little bit about sort of how I hold the difference between those, very subtle. But messenger really is just any individual, any person on the planet right now that has something in their heart that they want to express and bring out into the world. That can be a message or an idea or teachings or a book or an ebook or, you know, on and on and on, but something that wants to come out that could impact their family, their community, the country they live in, or even the whole world. And so I believe everybody innately has something, some message, something that they want to give to the world, and it's part of that. We've talked about this before, part of their purpose path. It's part of a purpose path, but it's really that voice, you know, what do I want to give voice to by pen, on the paper, blog, or in person, workshops or online programs, that kind of thing. So anybody can have a message, and anybody can bring that message forward.
Yeah, I wanna like come like the foundation of what we're talking about right here. There seems like this growing swell of people who are feeling compelled, feeling in their heart that they have something to share, as you said, Chris. And it could be sound healing, it could be through music, it could be through websites, it could be a blog, it could be doing a weekly webinar, calling yourself the Soul Talk guys, whatever it is. There's more. It's so nice to see more and more people doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to Swami a few weeks back. He's teaching us interesting stuff about ourselves, and he's one. When he says something, you know he's researched it. And he said in the year 2015, there were more books written than in all-time history up to the beginning of 2015.
Wow.
So there's this swell, right, of people that have something to share. And another piece of it, too, which came out, David, a couple of weeks ago when we had a couple of people on the show of messengers, that when you find something out about yourself, when you discover something, you instantly just want to share it. It's like, wow, look what I found out. And you just kind of feel compelled that you have to share it. Yeah. And so in this groundswell of this need to share, to make things better, to bring more love to the planet, to bring more peace to the planet, is where I see this kind of core foundation of what this messenger thing is about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and and to add to that, Tommy, it's a beautiful piece, because I think one thing that every person can resonate with is that I also have some story in my life, some challenge, some difficulty, some dark night of the soul, my own hero's journey that I've been through. And the more that we can authentically share that, like the vulnerable side of that, the dark side of our journeys, our own memoir, if you will, through blog or book or written word or spoken word and poetry and all that, right? That's the creative blossoming that's been happening for thousands of years, as somebody puts their own journey and their own experience somehow out through song or word or whatever it may be. And that's the kind of continual dialogue, or how would you say, putting it out there for the possibility of impact and dialogue, and also just for my own sense of creative output and experience. I think everybody has a story to tell, their own hero's journey story, their own mythical story of their life. And that's being a messenger, and that can impact hundreds, tens of people, 10 people, hundreds of people, or even thousands or millions of people. And it just depends on what lands and what's true for you and what resonates out in the world. And some people might have 20,000 people following them, some may have 3, and who cares, Just being able to put that message out that's authentic, I think, is important.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. One of the things that I teach people is, people are afraid of the idea of thinking that they have to be an inspiration or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I just tell them, look, there's no point in being afraid, because you're already an inspiration. Right. You are an inspiration to somebody in your life.
Yes.
Maybe it's one person, maybe it's 5 people, maybe it's 1,000 people. It doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is, if you live your life fully, if I live my life fully, and I share what I have learned with others, someone is going to be inspired. Mm-hmm. And really, if that's the only thing I do is inspire one person in my whole life is complete. Mm-hmm. That may be the extent of my purpose, the extent of my message, the extent of my the way I'm supposed to be showing up in the world.
Right.
I don't believe that's true for me right now, because I feel this real constant drive to keep putting the message out there. Mm-hmm. But I'm okay if I don't get the kind of response that I think my ego wants.
Right. Yeah. That's a key thing to let go of. Yeah, Tommy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, Chris, you said, we were talking about the hero's journey too, and each of our hero's journey. It's sometimes important for us to look, when we feel compelled to share, it means we've accomplished something, that we've freed ourselves from something. We've gone through some shit that now we can turn around and help other people out of. That's where our message comes from too. So it's important for us to like you said, share that, the vulnerable side, share the dark night story of the soul story, share that, because that's, David, that's what you're saying, is that's what people are going to relate to. Mm-hmm. They're going to go, oh my God, this person made it through that? Mm. And they're standing here, as a brave soul, sharing that story, and oh my God, yeah, that's what I've been going through too. Yeah. And not only, David, like you were implying, do you make that connection with that person, that if this person made it out, it gives me hope that I can make it out.
Bingo.
But it also sets you up as that coach or that teacher or that instructor to help that other person out of that similar situation. Mm-hmm. And that's probably why our message comes out in so many different varieties and forms, right? Because there's so many different places to be stuck, and so many different hells we can come from, and so many different dark nights that we can experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, well then what I'd like to explore with you guys is why don't more of us do it? Why aren't more of us bringing our message forward, or where do we get stuck in it? And that's something that I've been really curious about and deeply investigating the last bunch of years is what holds us back from really finding the passion and the purpose in our lives that moves us more toward that expression of who we are. And same thing as then the message, the voice that I want to bring forward, what stops that? And really it's two things, and there may be more, but two fundamental things that I see consistently is what stops it is that you guys have done this many shows, is that I have my own belief structure that tells me something. I mean, it's as simple as that. And you would have to find out what is your particular message that says you can't, or you shouldn't, or you should keep quiet. And we all have that. We all have that, and we must, like in my purpose course I teach, we must be working with those messages, the shadow sides of ourselves. We need to look at where do we hold ourselves back, where do we limit, shame ourselves, and that's key. So that's one. And then two is, I think there's actually a fear of being seen in some larger context, even if it's with 5 people or 10 people. This kind of idea of the fear of public speaking being higher than death, there is a kind of a translating to that of it's maybe not out there. If I'm writing a blog or if I'm doing an online course, I may not be in front of the people with a mic, but there is that consistent fear I hear from so many of my friends and teachers and others that I'm being seen, that there's less and less barrier between who I am and what I'm putting out in the world and all these potential thousands of people that are looking at me, judging me, saying that person's a fraud or sucks, So there is that kind of the fear of being on stage and being seen.
Yeah, I totally agree with those things, Chris. And I think there's more to it than that, though, personally. I've heard people say something like, well, I don't really have any kind of an important message that needs to be delivered. I'm happy with my life. I'm happy just taking care of my kids and doing my job. And I say, great, if that's really your truth, awesome, good for you. And I just kind of remind them, and even with that, you are still conveying a message. Even if you choose to remain silent, you are conveying a message. It's like the whole thing about, when the elections come up. If you choose not to vote, you're making some kind of a statement,
Yeah.
So everything that we do, every thought, word, action, and feeling that we express is a form or a component of our overall message.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think. Tommy, what about you?
Yeah.
There are also people here who aren't meant to be a face, that aren't meant to stand up. There are people here who are here whose mission is to hold energy, is to just be.
Yeah.
To be a gardener and to just till their garden with a peaceful mind and a peaceful heart. That's their job. That's their purpose. So not everyone, that's their message.
Yeah.
So the message is not going to be known to anybody but the plants that they're holding.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay too. So don't feel like if you feel like you want to help and you feel like you want to heal the planet that you have to be on stage or even write a blog or do anything in public. So it could just be that as well.
Yes.
Right.
But for
that's a really good point, because there are going to be people in our lives. I mean, I do want to get out there and deliver my message, and I'm trying to do that, but I can't do it alone. So I need people to support me. And I mean, you two guys are two people who support me in this area, but I also am going to need other people to support me with maybe some of the logistical pieces that I'm really not interested in doing, and maybe that's their purpose. But I think we have to be really careful here and say there's no right or wrong answer here. People choose their own lives, they choose their own destinies, they choose their own purpose, their own mission, and so forth. And I think we as leaders have to acknowledge and accept those people for who they are, where they are, right here, right now. Yeah. However, based on what I heard Chris say at the beginning of this question, I'm getting that, Chris, you're engaging with people who say, I really do want to get my message out.
That's right.
And they're holding themselves back.
Yeah, I want to create a distinction here. I love what you guys are saying. It's very inclusive. It's beautiful. But I will make a distinction between an idea of an unfolding purpose path or a spiritual path and the idea of a messenger path. Okay, I mean, let's be. I want to be really clear here, because we can be fully inclusive. Whatever your path is, David, whatever your path is, Tommy, if you want to be a gardener, there is an unfolding of your karmic path or your purpose path. That's not what I'm calling a messenger, guys. I mean, so I really want to say that some people will be called forth to bring a message, and I'm just saying it can be in any number of ways, and it can be at smallest level. But there is a calling to say, I've got something to share. I want to share it more. I've learned from this. I've had this challenge in my life that I've learned so much from. I would so love to help other people that face this challenge. I have Huntington's disease. I'm a quadriplegic now, and Christopher Reeve changed his whole life, the whole trajectory of his life. So I really want to say that absolutely not everybody needs to be a messenger, but a messenger is somebody willing to bring their message, their voice forward, and then even stretch themselves to say, well, what's the next level of me having an impact with my message? And just ask that question. So everybody else that's just doing their gardening thing, awesome. To me, if they don't feel called to that, then they're not really a messenger, even if their life is a message about how they live and who they are.
Okay.
So
great.
Does that make sense, guys?
Yeah.
Thanks for that distinction.
Yeah.
Let's stay on focus there and come back to your questions, Chris, because you had two very meaty questions. Like, what prevents us from stepping into that message?
Yeah.
And fear. Let's talk about the fear thing, right? Because fears come up in all different directions. Fear that this hasn't been done before. Fear. I make a joke that there isn't an IRS heading for us in the IRS. What we're doing is so new that there isn't a good path laid down. So we're out there exploring. We're adventurers. We're on the bleeding edge, and that can be scary for people.
Yes.
We bring that back into fear of public speaking. That could be like one of the first things that pops up. Oh, I'm afraid to voice my opinion, and that gets back to, you can root cause that one back to this need to have other people's approval.
Right.
That was bred into you since you were 1 or 2 years old. So yeah, we can address these concerns and issues, but let's talk about them some more, because it's important to understand what's stopping us from showing up in the way that we've intended to show up.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you guys have? I've given my two. Do you have something else, Tommy, to advise? And mine, the first one is not just fear. It's any message, any negative message cycle that may be unique to me that creates all kinds of things. Could be fear, it could be shame, it could be withdrawal. So it is really just whatever message is imprinted on you, Tommy, that says, I can't, meaning I shouldn't, I don't want to stand out, I need to be humble, it's too big, nobody knows, nobody cares about what I have to say. Any number of those things, but it's important that each person know what their biggest block is around that. I'm not creative enough, this isn't unique enough. And then to work with that, to say, really, well, let's work with that. How do we work with that? Well, you guys know how to do that. You've worked with these messages a lot. And I think that's the key thing for so many of the teachers I work with, is they have their doubts and they need to work through those messages and those doubts to get to the other side. Yeah.
Well, I think I mentioned one, which was I don't think my message is important enough. Mm-hmm. And I've actually heard people tell me that. And I've even had a little bit of that going on in my own life, because often the things that really inspire me are people who have gone through some traumatic experience, like surviving cancer, or like a major car accident where they lost a limb or something, or or there's this amazing speaker who apparently has no arms and no legs and somehow managed to climb a mountain or something. I mean, come on, I can't bring a story like that because I don't have one.
Right.
And that is part of the story that I make up in my head. Well, I'm never going to be that inspirational, Mm-hmm. But what I have learned, and this is because of Toastmasters, by the way, I bring a lot of little stories, small stories from my life into my Toastmasters, and I hear people say to me, wow, that was really inspirational.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, really? And so the surprise comes to me, and that's where I have come to learn that all of us are inspirational if we just give ourselves a chance.
That's great. That's great, David. Yeah, really great.
David, you just hit on something. A lot of us if we've gone through the dark part, if we've gone through something that that we've learned from, and we're kind of embarrassed by it sometimes, too, where there's shame involved in it. Dude, I spent 2 weeks in the psychiatric ward of a hospital. Do you think it was easy for me to say that out loud? Fuck. No, it's still like unnerving to admit that, but that's the state my mind got in because the way that us humans live, and it puts our minds in a crazy fucking place. And I've brought peace back to my mind, and that's what I now teach, and that's my message. But it's embarrassing, and people may say, what? Why would I even listen to you? You've been in a fucking loony bin. You lose all credibility. That's the story that goes on in our head. That your story's not credible. It's embarrassing. It's stupid. It's maybe illegal. Maybe it was something you did that you could have got arrested for. Maybe.
So wait a minute, Tommy. I gotta rewind a little bit. Has anyone ever actually said to you, "Why should I believe in you? You were in a fucking loony bin"?
Never.
Never. That's the point.
That is the point.
Right. He's got it. His own script in there. That's you're damaged goods. You shamed yourself. Why would anyone want to listen to me? Because I've got this skeleton in the closet. I love it. I love it. And we all have that. And David, you bring up a wonderful point about that we all have the pain in our lives. Some of it can be more relatable to others. Like some people can't relate to having the car accident, losing both arms and both legs. They feel it inspiring, but sometimes they can't possibly even relate to it. But some of my biggest shame earlier in my life was a divorce that, I failed marriage, and then the big D on my forehead, and, doing some things like I had a vasectomy at 28 years old to please my wife, not have kids, but, so doing these things that are dramatic, but in the scope of the world isn't super intense. But it's a story that people could relate to, and it's a story that might have some inspirational quality or some learning that I can share with others. Like, what did I get on the other side of all that? What did I learn from that? And David, I think the other side of all this is just somebody that's passionate about some area of life, and they deeply investigate it, and maybe they go through their own sort of difficult time. Let's say they go and meditate, they decide to drop out of their life and quit their job and sell everything and go to India and meditate for a year or 2 years or whatever. At some point in our success culture, people would say, why did you leave that great banking job and go and do that? But then I come back with such a richness and a depth of experience that now my own journey has allowing me to be able to teach others in a way because I've done the work. I've gone deep into some area that I'm passionate about. And that's kind of the flip of the sort of dark night of the soul to the journey that I took and the gold that I bring back to share with others.
Yeah, this whole dark night of the soul, the hero's journey thing, I actually picked up Joseph Campbell's book, Hero with a Thousand Faces, and it's a pretty interesting book, I have to say. And what's interesting to me is any good story actually follows that trajectory. You have the descent into whatever despair or problem or challenge there is. There's some form of awakening, growing, learning that takes place, and then you have the ascent out on the other side where some kind of learning is brought into the world. This is what we all seem to relate to. So that's why we love certain kinds of movies, and the ones that really follow that pattern are the ones that get our attention. Even if we don't necessarily relate entirely to the whole concept of what's going on. My own, okay, you guys have already shared a little bit, so I'll share a little bit of mine. My life story hinged on the 8 words that my mom said to me when I was 3 years old. Those 8 words were, I know you better than you know yourself. Now, they're innocent enough words, and from the perspective of a parent, they may have even seemed true to her. But what happened in my little 3-year-old mind, I think, was I went through a logical process of saying, oh, yeah, well, you're my mom, you meet all my needs, you take care of me, you must know me better than I know myself. And that immediately started a belief system within me that transformed into, well, if mommy knows me better than I know myself, then my daddy knows me better than I know myself, my grandma does, my grandpa does, the minister does, my teachers do, everybody all of a sudden knew me better than I knew myself. And so what am I doing? I'm disowning who I really am. And in the process of disowning who I really am, I'm giving up all my sovereignty to declare what I want or need and relying on other people to tell me that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens? Over 40 years, well, you can see there's a little trajectory that goes up like this, where down here is happy and content, and up here is fucking pissed off. To the point where when I was about 39 years old, just after my mom had died, my sister had the misfortune of sounding just like my mom and saying to me, "What the hell's wrong with you? Why haven't you been grieving?" The next thing I know, she's up against the wall with my hand around her neck.
Mm-hmm.
That's where my anger finally came out, to the point where I had to say, okay, you know, I got to do something about this.
Yeah.
That was the deepest point of my life right there. Actually, it got a little deeper when I left my family, came to California, got suicidal, you know, and it's just crazy. But then started learning stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm coming out the other side now.
Yeah.
That's my journey. It may not be, you know, a car accident thing that I survived, but it was a pretty powerful experience. And so my message nowadays to people is all about declaring, expressing, owning, and experiencing all of who you are and not letting anybody else do it for you. That's my message now.
Beautiful. Yeah. Wow, that was a nice little, one of the things that I work with in my clients and people that I work with and teachers is just that, is how can you tell this story, your story of your life, or some slice of it that really reveals who you are and what you've become as a result of that, right? We call it the bucket story. I mean, it's the hero's journey, but the bucket story is, I come here, my life was like this, and then it went like this. It's down the edge of the bucket, like, shit. And then I kind of wander around in the desert at the bottom of the bucket, right? And then something changes. Somewhere at the bottom of the bucket is some shift in my life. And sometimes it's a quick shift, or maybe it's the New Warrior Training Adventure you did, or I did, whatever, or something that shifts, and then all of a sudden the learning and coming out of the bucket to the other side. And now I'm bringing more of that into my own life and to others' lives. And so you tell your bucket story, you know, and that was a beautiful bucket story. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, one of the things I'd like to see is, surely there's a way of approaching the bucket, walking around the rim of the bucket, and then going to the other side.
It is, but you know, that's not life.
Same learning.
But that's not life, David. That's what's so great about it, is that we all fall in the fucking bucket.
Yeah.
We have to fall in the bucket. And when I talk to people, I call it, we have to go through that hard part. Yeah. Because without having experienced it, without me having experienced the total loss of mental peace, I would not know how to relate to somebody who has lost their total mental peace. And I would not know how to reach into them and express to them that I know how to get out of it, and to follow me and I'll teach you how to get out of it. So we had to have gone through the hell. You have to go through hell before you get to heaven. Yeah. And talking about stories and metaphors and Dante's Inferno, right? You got to go through hell before you climb out and get to heaven.
Yes.
It's just part of life here on this planet.
And I would actually say this to both of you, that if you're an individual who has worked so hard to keep life so sanitized and safe, always walking around the bucket, David, if that's your life, then that is something to look at, that I haven't risked enough of my passion, my energy, who I am, my own voice, to occasionally fall into that bucket. And that risk could be through relationship, it could be through creative projects, it could through living a more purposeful life. There's lots of ways to risk that. But if you're risking yourself for that greater sense of learning about self and greater wholeness and all that, if you're doing that, you're going to fall in the bucket. You're going to fall in a bucket. And maybe your bucket's a little, you know, some people are way down in that deep bucket that's like this, and then others, you know, shallow bucket. But we all go there, and then the key thing is, can we get out? Can we find the support, do it ourselves, or get the support we need to come out of that bucket? Because I do believe a lot of people fall into the bottom of the bucket and they stay there. You know, that's kind of their life. I'm here at the bottom of the bucket, and I don't really want to get out.
Well, I wouldn't say anybody doesn't want to get out. They don't know how. Or they don't know how. They don't believe there's a way out, or they've been in the bucket so fucking long they don't know that they're in the bottom of the bucket.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. Better said. Thank you.
It's not better. It's a way of I'm feeling like, oh yeah. Some people just don't know.
Right.
And that's the whole awakening, awareness, and then realizing what the fuck, and then trying to get out.
That's right. Beautiful.
There's a hole in my bucket, dear Liza, dear Liza. There's a hole in my bucket.
Well, we got our jingle in, Tommy. We got the jingle in right there.
No, and he sung that jingle last week too, because we were talking about energy drains and how we lose energy from ourselves. And
Oh, that's right. It was a different perspective, wasn't it?
it's a different use of the bucket metaphor, but you still sang that nice jingle. Thanks.
Oh, geez, yeah.
I guess that's our new jingle.
Well, so the point I guess we're trying to make here, we've all had our experience. Each of us has had our own individual experience in which we found our own bucket. We fell into our bucket. We were there for a while, however long it took, and then somewhere along the way we found a way out of the bucket.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be discovering a ladder on the other side and climbing out, or it could be meeting somebody else who's fallen into the same bucket, and so you work together and you find a way out together. Maybe, I don't know, who knows? Maybe you get enlightened as a result of learning. Maybe the whole reason you ended up in the bucket in the first place was because of some kind of ego stuff that was going on. And as you're down in that bucket, you realize, I've been spending too much time in my head, and I need to get down into my heart.
Mm.
And just by doing that, maybe you loosen up enough weight on your body and on your being that you just kind of float out of the bucket. I mean, there's all kinds of ways of doing this, and I've just imagined 3 of them right there.
Mm-hmm.
So I just say briefly what your process was there, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, my bucket process was really about getting deeply honest with myself and going through a process over a fairly short period of time to do that. And then one of my tools, or what happened to me, is my father invited me to do the Mankind Project's New Warrior Training Adventure. And I was in that exploration of, what do I really want? This relationship is not working. I'm miserable. And then really going through this initiatory experience and waking me up. I mean, it's a big part of my journey and why I'm now a co-leader in the work and committed to men's work and committed to the organization, because I came out of the bucket. That experience, that training, the group of men, the support, helped pull me out of this bucket of that. I in some ways I couldn't see myself, how to get out.
Right.
And that was the hand down. Maybe that's the way, a beautiful masculine hand down the bucket to pull me out, and all these
Nice.
beautiful men that helped me out of that. And that's been my journey into purpose too, because we do a lot of that work with the mission work in MKP and taking that deeper with my own teaching. So
Great, thanks. How about you, Tommy?
Oh, it's more than we have time for right now, but similar story. There were several steps that helped get me to realize I was in the bucket. There was a wake-up call in a book I read. Then there were some steps that kind of start crawling out, and then one teacher in particular was the big hand that reached in, and then that's what I now have embodied and I share. So it seems like a similar kind of get out of the bucket type scenario.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So hey, Chris, thank you so much. Thanks for being here, as being an open-hearted, loving, amazing man on the planet, and a spectacular messenger. It's inspirational to hear your voice and your story and your experience. And thanks for sharing the bucket metaphor, and best wishes with everything that you're doing on the planet, because you're doing it to the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Chris, just a reminder for people who are listening, the website you want people to check out is called the launchacademycourse.com. Is that right?
Yeah, and I'm putting it in the window if people can see if they can all see that in the chat. Does
I see it.
That? Great, yep. Launch Academy course, absolutely. And then I'm also offering, for anybody listening, I'm offering a free 30-minute laser strategy and discovery session. If you're thinking about taking your message, your content online, maybe you've been doing some workshops or written a book, and how do I teach this? I give a lot of great value in the 30-minute session, and it's also an opportunity to see if Launch Academy is a fit for you as well. So you can go to that page and you can book that, or you can also go here directly. That's the next link to just schedule the time with me. So I'm so excited to be here with both of you guys again. It was wonderful, great conversation, very spirited, and I had a lot of fun. So thank you guys.
Great. So I'll read those out so people can see them.
Yeah.
First is launchacademycourse.com. That's the main website. And if you want to connect with Chris directly, it's meetme.so/Chris Kyle. That's CHRISKYLE. All right. Well, thanks again, Chris. And Tommy, do you have anything you want to say before we close out?
Nope, except you're going to tell folks what we're doing next week.
Oh, that's right.
Right. Yeah, next week we have invited a special lady. Her name is Linda Shively, and she is going to be sharing with us some of her learnings around the whole idea of laughter, and in particular, how laughter can be used in a yogic practice. So we're going to have fun with that one. We're probably going to do a lot of laughing. So come join us, and we'll see you all next week.
Bye, everyone.
See ya.